Viking from 47 to Nowland Boulevard. The meeting won't be closed tonight. There are some people that are subject to assessment that still need to be have an opportunity to hear on West Fordbrook. And so when we're done here, we will continue this meeting until our workshop, city workshop, Thursday, April 5th at 7 o'clock. So if I start to close, if the council could remind me, we're continuing so that all residents get a chance to weigh in. The opportunity we have here tonight is there's a series of meetings that take place when we're looking at road improvements. There's a 5-year plan in place that our Road and Bridge Committee has worked on and presented to the council. The council's taken a look at that and determined there's an opportunity to do road improvements in a phased fashion over the next 5 years to get to the roads throughout the city. And there's a road study plan that's been put together on the part of the city, and that plan evaluates the current condition of each of the blacktop roads in the city that are the responsibilities of the city. We have county roads here and we have gravel roads here, which are not subject to this tonight. So in this particular hearing, we've had a feasibility report where our engineer has put together the document saying, here's the condition of the road, here's what would help, here's what the estimated cost might be, and here's how they would be distributed amongst property owners. This is a unique situation here because there's a lot of different sized properties on this road. It extends halfway across the city. And we anticipate people will have things to say about it. So we're going to start with tonight. This is the improvement hearing. What you'll hear, the engineer is going to make a presentation tonight on our screen back here. And he will tell you how we got to where we're at, give you some background information. And then you will have an opportunity to speak to the council, ask questions of our attorney, Bob Rupe, our engineer, Shane Nelson, or any of the council. You'll have a chance to weigh in on your thoughts at this point. Should the council decide after hearing these comments and moving forward that we want to get true estimate of cost, there will be an order for improvements. You'll hear Shane talk about an order for improvements and presenting construction plans and bidding. That doesn't mean we're going ahead with it, but until we know what those true costs are, we can't come back to you and say, here's the actual cost for the project. So subsequent to all of that, should we proceed, would be an assessment hearing. Typically, we would expect that to be sometime in June. There would be a follow-up assessment hearing, and you would have then presented to you. You would all get letters again. Here's what we're thinking. Here's what the actual costs are estimated to be. And there would be a further discussion before we then go ahead and move forward. If at that point after the assessment hearing, the city still thinks it's a reasonable thing to do, once we let bids out to contractors, then we can't pull it back anymore. But until bids are actually let out to contractors, we have the ability to change or eliminate this project. So we're not trying to force anything through. We're trying to figure out how do we best serve the residents over a period of years so that all of our roads stay in good shape. How do we keep them from deteriorating to a point where it's much more costly to do these improvements? So we do have a couple of members of our Road and Bridge in attendance tonight. I don't know if Joe is still here, our maintenance manager, who is actually part of the study on the roads. And I don't know if they want to be recognized, but they're certainly something that if you have questions, they're here, and they're here to hear your comments, bring them back to our Road and Bridge, and certainly the entire council is here to hear your comments. So we're going to start with our engineer, Shane Nelson, and he's going to give a presentation, and then we'll have your questions after that.
Bring Shane, bring
Your microphone.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to get started, the red line shows the project location. You're probably all familiar, but it'd be Old Viking Boulevard starting at 5 and continuing all the way on to 47. So Old Viking is shown in the red line. Just a little bit of background about the city. Now then owns and maintains about 34 miles of paved roads, 29 miles of gravel roads. The project that we're talking about tonight is 3.5 miles, so it's a significant portion, about 10% of the paved roads, but only about 5% of the overall road system in the city of Nowden. The city has levied some money for the proposed road improvement projects, but not enough to fully fund the improvements. So the reason that you're all here tonight is because the project is proposed to be financed with a combination of city funds and assessments. And this project is programmed for construction in the year 2018. So existing conditions, Old Viking Boulevard used to be a county road. It was turned back to the city quite a few years ago. The pavement rating is deteriorating. This is what the mayor was speaking of with the city maintenance supervisor and the road and bridge committee, looking at some of the roads and rating them. Back in 2008, Old Viking Boulevard had a rating of between 78 and 81. And in 2015, that rating fell to 53. So you're probably all noticing that it's getting rougher and in worse shape. And that's because there's a higher severity of longitudinal and transverse cracks. We're also starting to see more and more pattern cracking, which is block cracking or alligator cracking. I'll show you some pictures of that in a minute. And the reason that we're considering an overlay now is really to extend the pavement life, to increase the ride, or improve the ride, and kind of delay the inevitable more expensive repairs. So this is a picture of existing conditions. In this picture you see some longitudinal cracking and some edge cracking. This picture you see some pattern cracking developing around a transverse crack. Some more longitudinal and transverse cracking. You actually see some settlement on this shoulder here. Again, a higher severity of transverse cracks. This is just east of County Road 66, I believe. This is a wetland here, and there's actually a settlement near the wetland. This photo shows block cracking of the pavement. When we experience cracking like this, it's no longer effective to crack seal that. And so we really, once we have this type of cracking, those cracks generally sit there unmaintained until a structural improvement is completed. Here's another segment with kind of a higher severity of cracking. So with that, that's some photos of the existing pavement. Now just a quick overview of pavement when it's new. When it's new, it consists of a mixture of rock or aggregate, sand and oil, and all that material mixed together makes your bituminous mixture. And you can see that when pavement is new, the surface is it's smooth, relatively fine, and it's usually a darker black color. So the natural aging process of pavement over time, you see that black color fade away. It turns to gray. There's no longer that black. That black color was the oil in the bituminous, and the oil is the glue, so it's what kind of holds everything together. As you start to lose that from the surface, you start to lose that glue or the binder that holds your aggregate in. After some time, your smaller sand particles start to erode or wash away. And even as those start to erode or wash away, that exposes the larger rock. And as soon as about half of that diameter of that larger rock is exposed, then you start having your larger rocks can pop out too. So over time, you lose thickness of the road, you lose the durability, you lose the essentially the binder that holds the pavement together. Also, a natural thing that happens is the pavement cracks. As it cracks, it lets water in. When the pavement lets water in, the base underneath it gets soft, it cracks more, and so you have alligator cracking. And once alligator cracking develops, it generally continues until a repair is done. And so this illustration just kind of illustrates that crack in the bituminous pavement. When it rains or there's moisture, the water finds its way down that crack into the aggregate base. When any material becomes super saturated, it loses its strength. When it loses its strength, it yields under pressure. So when you have traffic on it, that pavement might yield a little bit. That's how it develops cracks. And the more it cracks, the more it lets water in, and the more it continues to crack. It kind of propagates. Another thing that happens is during the winter months when you have freeze thaws, maybe warmer temperatures during the day, but it cools off in the evening. You'll have some melting that will occur. That melting gets into the crack, it gets into the aggregate base. At night it freezes again, pushes up on the pavement. That's what we call tenting. And a lot of times you might feel that when you're driving in the winter months on a road and it feels rough. Old Viking Boulevard is one of them that tents quite a bit. And that's usually caused by this phenomenon. The state of Minnesota, as a state as a whole, spends a lot of money on roads, on infrastructure. So they also dedicate a significant portion of their state gas tax to research. And one thing that's been pretty heavily researched over time is how pavement deteriorates. And it's kind of interesting, what they find is that the first 40% drop in quality happens over 75% of the pavement's life. So if a road's supposed to last for 20 years, over that first 15 years, you're only gonna see a 40% drop in quality. After that, after you start developing cracks and you start letting water into the base, your next 40% drop in quality happens only over 12% of the pavement life. So basically what this chart is telling us is as pavement deteriorates and gets towards the end of that life, it's rather, a rather quick process. One other interesting thing is $1 for a renovation here can cost anywhere from $8 to $100 of renovation here, depending on how extensive the subgrade repairs need to be. So what we're trying to do tonight is kind of catch the road when it's right in here, when it's most cost effective to do a repair before a more expensive repair is needed. And we're also trying to prevent the road from dropping even more in rideability and quality, which we expect to happen relatively quickly. This chart just shows the different treatment methods. Obviously, the do-nothing treatment method, there's no cost associated with it. The next treatment method is routine maintenance. That would be like our crack filling. And there is a cost there, it's just so small, it doesn't really show up on the chart. What we're talking about tonight is a structural improvement. And generally the cost for a 2-inch overlay, like we're talking about tonight, is around $180,000. If we wait even a few years or maybe 5 years, we might be down to this next improvement, which is a reconstruction of the surface. That would be when we go in with a reclaim machine, grind up the pavement, and then construct a new bituminous mat on top of that. At that point, the cost would be about double, around $360,000 per mile. And again, if we miss that opportunity or miss that window, wait until the road's in really poor condition, potholes everywhere, subgrade failures. At that point, a total reconstruction would be needed, and a cost for that is around $650,000 or $700,000 per mile. So about doubles again. So what we're talking about for Old Viking, or what are the proposed improvements, would be to construct a bituminous overlay 2 inches thick. Some of the benefits about that 2-inch overlay, it's going to add structural strength. It'll improve the ride. It'll extend the service life. The general rule of thumb is that it extends the service life by 10 years, but I've overlaid enough roads in my career now. I've overlaid them some 10, 12, 15 years ago, and those roads still look as good or better as before we overlaid them. So generally 10 years, but in practice, I'm seeing it extends the life closer to 15 or maybe even close to 20 years. There is $70,000 in the budget for patching of settled areas and or alligator areas. Also shouldering, matching driveways, and raising mailboxes. Sometimes when we construct that bituminous overlay, just that 2 inches of overlay makes your mailbox height out of compliance. The USPS wants to see those mailboxes between 42 inches and 45 inches from the pavement surface. So we usually do that as part of the project. So again, just another illustration. This red line would be a typical pavement deterioration curve. The blue line is the line that we're trying to achieve. The smaller increments or smaller jumps up in quality are the crack filling that we do. At some point, Old Viking Boulevard is gonna just not be, it's not gonna be cost effective to crack fill anymore because you really can't crack fill alligator areas. But we've been doing some crack filling, and now we're to here where we wanna construct an overlay, jump that pavement condition back up into the good range again, the green, and then kind of interrupt that typical deterioration curve and try to extend the pavement life.
Shane, can you just mention too, one of the residents had written in previously about shouldering. We're not adding a shoulder, it's not going to be, we're not considering doing what happened on Viking Boulevard or 22. So explain what shouldering is, and then we're actually, the mat would be 24 feet wide?
Sure, the existing pavement width right now is 22 feet wide, and this project proposes to just match that same width of 22 feet. So the pavement would then be up 2 inches or 2 inches higher in elevation than the existing road surface. So really shouldering is just to protect that edge with gravel, and it would taper out to the existing grade within about 2 feet.
The road would be no wider than it is now, just
That is correct.
the edge would be balanced with the new mat.
Right. The engineer's estimate for this project is $533,280. As the mayor indicated earlier, this is simply an estimate. These are my estimates based on my experience with bidding similar type of projects. The map on the screen shows all the parcels that would benefit from the proposed improvements and are proposed to be assessed. All the projects in yellow directly front onto Old Viking Boulevard. The mayor also mentioned there are 4 properties that are shown in blue that are on West Fort Brook. Those would also benefit, and those are proposed to receive a quarter assessment rate as opposed to the full assessment rate for direct abutting properties. So there are 65 properties with direct access, 4 with indirect. The city is proposing to pay 50% of the cost. I would just like to mention right here that previous road projects, particularly our assessment projects, the city has assessed 100% of the cost. And so the 50% is a relatively new thing that this council did quite a bit of discussion with, including with Road and Bridge Committee. And so that will immensely help reduce the assessment amount. The 50% of the project cost spread across the 65 properties results in an assessment of roughly $4,040 per direct unit. And the indirect assessment would be 1/4 of that, or 1,010. The assessments are generally amortized over time, so you have the option of paying them in full up front, or you just let them go on your property taxes. So you pay, this amount divided by 10 plus a little bit of interest. Interest rates are favorable right now, so it is a good time to do projects as opposed to when interest rates climb up to the 5 or 6%. With that, this is kind of a proposed preliminary schedule, and this schedule isn't final, or it's not necessary to follow it exactly. It just gives you an idea of all the steps that have to happen between now and the time that this project would actually be constructed. So here we are tonight, March 20th, at the public improvement hearing. The council is interested in hearing your input, whether or not you feel that this project should be completed at this time. Assuming that the comments are favorable, they could order plans as early as April 10th. After plans are ordered, it takes my office probably 3 to 4 weeks to prepare the plans. Then we would present those plans to the city council for approval and authorization to go out for bids. After that, there's a mandatory bidding period where we go out and seek competitive bids, try to obtain as most bids as we could to hopefully drive the prices down. Likely the earliest we could have a bid opening would be in June of this year. At that time, we would actually know the cost. At that time, we'd have actual contractor bids, and it would no longer be an estimate, we'd actually know the cost. Then the city would generally invite you all back in for what's called the assessment hearing. At that point, we actually have the cost, and they can say, at that point, these are the numbers, and this is your proposed assessment. So the number tonight is again, just an estimate. Construction could start as early as July of this year. The warm summer months are the best time to construct bituminous overlays. Generally get a better finished product when it's warmer out. And we would have a completion date of right around September 1st. Now, that doesn't mean that this project is going to take that entire construction period, but generally, we try to complete all of our public improvement projects before school starts, and we give them the longest possible window to do it, so contractors can, will generally give us the best price if we're flexible on when that project can be done. So there's always questions during these public improvement projects or public improvement hearings. Can we just wait a year, or can we wait a few years? What happens if we delay the project? If we delay the project, the road will still be serviceable for at least the next probably 3 to 5 years. Pattern cracking, water will continue to get in the base, so it'll continue to expand or make the existing cracking worse. You'll see more and more potholes develop. It's probably gonna get a little bit rougher as time goes on. At some point, more expensive repairs will be required. And, in the future, the city's ability to fund a project is unknown. So right now, the city has budgeted for this. It may be affordable for them. If this project is delayed to the point where the costs double or even quadruple, it may no longer be affordable for the city to pay for 50% of the cost. So right now, there's a city council that has discussed road improvements quite a bit and is willing to vote for the 50%. So with that, I'll go back and sit down.
In the past, when assessments have been done, it's actually been 100% assessed to the homes. And so we're looking at 50% to, share that cost with money that we're setting aside in the budget for these roads, rather than what's been the past practice prior to becoming a city. So.
Mr. Mayor, that concludes my presentation. If the attorney. Oh, I always forget that mic.
Try to set it on the table too, so we don't set it on the end of the table so we don't get the feedback too.
Yeah, we can do that. And maybe we're gonna put it on the table here. I don't know if that's close enough.
I would
Avoid the feedback. So at this point, we'll invite our city attorney, Bob Ruby, to say his piece.
Well, I just want to echo that these costs that you're hearing today are just estimate based on the experience of the city engineer. And I also want to just let you know, you're going to hear things about ordering improvements and stuff that you heard from Shane. Just want to echo what the mayor said earlier, that these are all, I can stop the process, the city council can stop the process until such time as as the city actually awards the contract to the lowest responsible bidder. At that point in time, because we have now entered into a contract, that would be the time where there's kind of the point of no return. And that would be after the assessment hearing in June, that we anticipate to hear in June, that you will be invited back once you know what those lowest, what the bids came back at, and we would have actual concrete numbers. And that's the biggest thing I just wanted to make sure that we're very clear on. That's the point when, even though if you hear that we have ordered the improvement, ordered plans and specs to be prepared, ordered it to be put out for bid, it's when we get the bids back and the council actually awards the contract, that's sort of the point of no return on one of these projects. And again, everything you've heard tonight with regard to numbers is just estimates. And we again hope that we get favorable bids back and that the project cost would actually be lower than what we talk about tonight. That's our hope. And in past experience, that's sort of been our experience from the projects that I've done with other communities. And so with that, I guess it'd be up to the council, but to open up the public hearing portion of this.
All right, so what we will ask you to do is would you like to weigh in on this tonight? We'd ask you to step up to the podium, introduce yourself, give us your address, and then share with the council your opinions at this point. Understanding, again, this will not be the last opportunity to speak on this, and we will also take input for those that can't be here but are watching us on YouTube. You can make your comments known in writing on email or hard copy to the clerk at the city offices, or to any of us on the council. We'll take your input. If you want to put something in writing, I do have a couple of residents that couldn't be here tonight that wanted to weigh in. So we do have, for the record, Walter Cleeth and Robert Bambury that have weighed in as well. So that'll be part of our record, part of the minutes for the meeting tonight. And anybody else would like to share tonight, we welcome your comments at this point. Thank you.
Somebody has to.
We need the mic.
It's right here.
Oh, right here.
We're getting some feedback. Try it there. We'll see if we get the
Try it
feedback.
here?
Try it. You can try it there. We'll just see if we're getting feedback. Shane, why don't you shut yours off, maybe?
I'm Charlie Zaya. Is it okay?
Yes.
I live at 6225 Old Viking. And I have 3 points that I'd like to, the first one is I agree with the assessment of the road, of the condition of it. All right, 100%. The second one is this road is used by basically the entire city. Everybody uses it. And so I don't agree with the 50% assessment. I agree, I think the city should bear more of a cost on it, so it's spread out more to the city. I do believe that we should be assessed something, but I don't agree with 50%. And then my third one is that I would like to know what the speed limit would be on this road. Right now, a lot of people use it as a fast shortcut to go from Northern Boulevard to either 66 or to 47. Right now we got bikers on it, we got joggers on it, and we got horseback riders on it. These people are going down this road 50 miles an hour, and it's 50 miles an hour, but it's a crazy road. You can't do that on that road, but they try it. And so my opinion is I would support this going forward with this if the speed limit would be lowered to 35, 40 miles an hour. Thank you.
So an informal survey, how many people in this room live on this road? Okay, of those people, how many would like to see a 35 to 45 mile an hour speed limit? How many would oppose that? okay? I'm not certain it's within our power. We've tried this before. It's certainly something we can look at again.
But, okay, question, why wouldn't it be within our power? It's our road.
It has to do, Shane, if you wanna take
Sure,
that.
Mr. Mayor, there's only a handful of statutory speed limits. And so, in order to meet a 35 mile per hour speed limit, there has to be a visible dwelling unit every 300 feet. There might be sections of Old Viking Boulevard that would meet that. I've never performed a study on it. But I think there are other sections where, you know, it's a little bit more spread out. There's some agricultural properties that definitely would not meet it. After 35 mile per hour, the next statutory speed limit is 55. And there's really nothing in between that we have the authority to set a speed limit at. When we have roads that we think should be something in between, we can petition the MnDOT commissioner to do a speed study. And they'll actually come out, it usually takes them a few months, but they'll come out and review the conditions and then give us back a speed study. The difficult thing with that is, you know, MnDOT's position is they're generally trying to move traffic as fast as they can, and we've requested a speed study at up off of north of County Road 24, and actually with some gravel road areas, and they have came back and told us, no, we don't think any change to the statutory speed limit is necessary. On a lot of gravel roads, it's 55 miles per hour.
Right, which is absolutely insane,
Right.
but
So
this is our
let's say,
road.
so we don't,
you know,
we don't
okay.
get off track
Right,
here.
all right, thank you.
Let's say, as residents who live on that road, I won't speak for the whole council right now, but I will say that we are willing to investigate, looking with the MnDOT commissioner. I think this is extenuating here, because we've got the new Viking a block away, and it's covering the same distance. So if you're trying to get from 5 to 47 or 5 to 66, and you wanna go that fast, you can go over a block and do that. And I think we have a real good argument. We've struck out before when we tried to lower the speed limit on 22 coming into our business district, but that's a completely different thing than what we're looking at here. So, I think, you know, again, we'll approach it as a council, Councilman Bettinger.
The city has requested a speed study to be done on this, and it was just done, and we just lowered the speed limit from 55 to 50 within, last year or two, so I don't think they'll come out and do another study that quick.
doesn't matter.
And they actually do a speed study based on what 85% of the people driving it, they actually are out there with radar guns, and it's gotta be a lead car, nobody's holding it back, what would the average person driving at, and that's what it's based on, so people on average are driving at least 50 or greater out there today.
So again, for another night, we won't let this drop, but Councilman Bettinger's right, we had a study done and it got lowered to 50. Wow. The logic is skewed to me, because this is the problem we had on Viking. We're saying people are flying into our business district at 55 plus, and they actually, they don't use it as a threat, but they'll tell you, if we find people are going faster than even the speed limit, we can raise it. If we did another study on Old Viking, and they found out they're actually doing 55, they could knock it back up to 55. And they said, so you gotta be careful when you ask for a speed study, because they use what people average on. I said, it's ridiculous when you're trying to come in and out of our business district on 22, and people are flying along to a four-way stop at 55, 60 miles an hour. And you're saying that's okay, because that's what majority of people are driving. We have to change that logic. That's not what this meeting's for, but I'm certainly willing to help fight on that, and I think most of the council would be as well. To let's revisit that. Let's re-argue that and see if we have to. We've got the chair of the House represents our district. We can go to our state senators and representative and have them fight for us to make some common sense change to that. This logic of saying whatever people are traveling as an average should be the speed limit, in a case like this, shouldn't apply. If you wanna go that fast, there's a nice county road with a wide shoulder sitting right next to it, move over there. But we're gonna have to do that as a community, we're gonna have to, and invite you to support the council and write and contact our legislators, and we'll get them out here for a meeting. But we agree, that's not a good speed limit for that road, for people who are living on it, for people that know there's other traffic on there. But tonight is for the improvement hearing, and secondarily, you know, we'll join you in what can we do to check that speed limit. You know, I have heard people that don't want improvements on roads because it keeps you from going too fast. The problem is the roads are gonna break down, and then you have no choice, and it gets very expensive to repair that. But yes, speed bumps, it would be nice to have a lower speed limit, because then it could be patrolled that way, and those people that want these scoff laws can help pay the county's bills. But again, if you were so interested in lowering the speed limit, would you please communicate to the office? Corey, if you can just, as they call in, we'll put them on a list, give us your name and number, so as we move forward on potential for that, we can contact you and say your help is needed, to talk to Kurt Dowd, Michelle Benson, and our county commissioners, wherever we can get the help, So if you want to weigh in on that, feel free, but tonight, let's weigh in on the improvements. What do you think on what we've suggested for Old Viking? And we'll go speed limits another night. Pinnaker Lake did a lot more than this, guys.
Just a quick question on clarification, if everybody can hear me. 4400.
So we'll need your name and
Dave
address.
Flatbone, sorry, 7230 Old Viking. And I just wanted to clarify, the 4,000 estimate right now per unit is not based on linear foot or anything like that, it's strictly per unit, correct?
Correct.
Okay, right, thanks.
You know, as Shane might have said in the presentation there, I know he said it previously, but there are multiple ways of doing this. You can do it lineal foot, you can do a variety of ways. We've decided at this point, equitable would be distributed by properties, not by frontage.
I'm Don Emmerich from 7223 Old Viking. I can see this project is probably a necessary project. I'm just curious as to, is there anything going to be done about where there is no ditch in the road itself and the water running across the road? There's several areas there there is no ditch and there's water running across, and the road is in pretty bad shape in those areas. Is there anything going to be done about that?
I'll ask Shane to weigh in on that. What would be the intention on those areas where there isn't a proper ditching?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, at this point, there isn't any ditching included in this project, or at least included in the project that would be assessed to the residents. That's certainly something that we could look at. We'd have to likely send a survey crew out and survey them. Another option would be for our city maintenance staff to go out there and do some ditch cleaning or some ditch improvements as well.
I'd also like to comment about in front of my house, when the city took over the street from the county, they filled in along the front of my driveway. There isn't a concrete culvert in there, but the city filled that in. So I don't have a culvert there. The water runs down the road in front of my house, and there's not a lot of room, but I know there's utilities in there too. There's telephone and iNet and so forth. But I don't know if you can do anything about that, but I think it's very important that you do something about the water running across the road in certain spots. And that would be just to the east of me a little bit, that I notice it pretty heavy.
And your address again is 7233?
Pardon?
23.
7223.
7223.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Other comments?
My name is Brent Fristed, I'm on 6160 Old Viking. The project includes repairing the areas where moisture is evident, where the alligator cracking is, right? So they'll pull up that pavement and replace it completely, or how's that work?
Yeah, that's correct. The areas with severe alligator cracking will be patched.
Okay,
There are other areas with maybe some block cracking that's not as severe. And in those areas, we likely do a skin patch to add a little bit of additional strength. At the end of the project, our goal is to try to have the entire road about the same strength. We don't want this section really strong and this section, with less strength.
so you wouldn't have, you gotta get rid of all that moisture underneath there, right? Because it freezes and it'll come up and
Right.
ruin the new road. So that's the idea, right?
Right, and the idea is by constructing a thicker 2-inch overlay that provides additional strength than say a 1.5-inch overlay or a thinner overlay. Some cities might even do as thin as a 1-inch overlay, which doesn't add a lot of strength. But the thicker overlay, that's also it's gonna act somewhat like a new road. And we're gonna see our transverse cracks during the winter months when the pavement contracts. We're gonna hopefully see those cracks happen at a more normal interval, once every 30 feet or so, something that we can go through and crack fill and keep that moisture out of the road.
Okay, so if the transition off the edge, if you're just gonna raise it up next to the edge of the road, that outer edge, you fill in with dirt or whatever, rocks and gravel or whatever.
Right.
Why wouldn't you extend around the edge with that new concrete to protect the edge better than just dirt where water can get down there? You know what I mean? Right along the edge, it's gonna be. Cause you said you're going to the exact width of the existing road. Why wouldn't you protect that edge better, or doesn't it need to be protected?
Mr. Mayor, really the protection is having that shoulder there. That shoulder, with gravel, and if it's compacted properly, that provides lateral support, so when you have a car or a truck that's running close to the edge of the road, there's lateral support to keep that edge from breaking off.
You also taper that gravel shouldering so that water runs off to the ditch,
Correct.
so it doesn't pool there.
Okay, and then the transition to everybody's driveway, is there gonna be a hump, or is it gonna be smooth? Like you got 1 foot to go down into their driveway, you raise it up 2 inches, is it gonna be,
How far
What's the
does the
extension?
driveway
Yeah.
apron go in your plan?
Yep. Generally, the transition is within 2 feet of the road edge. So you make up that 2 inches and 2 feet, so about 1 inch a foot. So it's a fairly smooth transition.
that's all I had, thanks.
Thank you. Other comments? Did Shane just do such a good job that there's no questions, or?
But they're all gonna sign the paper.
Because we certainly, the opportunity here, this is what we want to, this is the opportunity to have your feedback, so.
We're gonna come up to, we're tag team.
All right,
I'm Connie Tamala at 6730 Old Viking Boulevard.
Kathy Mavison, 6672, Old Viking.
And our biggest comment is the poor maintenance in the wintertime, the snow plowing. Our road is the worst ever, and everybody here knows that. It's just never plowed, and no wonder there's water sitting there all the time, because we've got humps of ice. I've called in, and they're like, yeah, we've been down there, it's really bad. But we
like-
just, yeah, go ahead.
It's like you don't even have to worry about a speed limit, because as soon as you pick up speed, you got ice ahead of you.
Slide.
In fact, the ice just went out a couple days ago, really, on some spots. It's like the worst, it's the last road plowed
It
ever.
is very poor.
Yeah, and what makes us think that if we get all this road fixed, that that's gonna change? We'll be the first plowed after that? I don't know.
Want to speak to that? Is it the last road plowed?
It is.
Is that by the trees? Is there shade there?
Sure. But it's patchy, very patchy. Patchy
It
ice.
does tend to be a pretty shaded road, even with no leaves on it. I mean, it is one of the harder ones to keep ice
We
free.
got ruts. I mean, there's trails going down because,
Well, look at 66 or 5.
Well,
yeah.
That's county, don't they
That's
use a
the
lot of
county.
salt, we don't use a lot of salt. Old Viking is actually one of that truck, that's one of the first roads on that route, so. Sometimes that could be the problem, because sometimes they start and it hasn't finished snowing yet, so because you're done so early.
And they don't come back, because I'm literally saying, we have ruts that we drive in on each side of the road, and sometimes the road is, it's so small that people have to go over their line, and then if you meet cars, it's awful. And I mean, everybody can drive down there when it's snowing, and you can see how horrible it is. So, and then, also, I was gonna say too, you know, when we moved in, they made us put a culvert. We had our driveway in, and they made us dig our driveway out and put a culvert in. How come a lot of the places don't have to have culverts? Why is the water sitting on the road?
Shane, are you aware that anybody doesn't have to have a culvert?
There's places there that don't have culverts where the water's sitting.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know that we have a process for going back and like retrofitting or, existing homes that don't have culverts, require them to put in one. I do know for new construction, a culvert's a requirement. So I don't know if these are older houses that have been there for 20, 30 years and they just
Possibly,
never
we've been
had
there over 18,
Okay.
and they made us dig our driveway out, and after we had it finished, and put a culvert in. So, yeah, and then my last concern was, when they fixed Viking Boulevard, they used us as the alternate route. Well, I'm sure that tore a lot of the old Viking up, having that much traffic going through. Because we were the bypass.
So Randy, any chance the county wants to help us out?
Next week? Yeah, actually, I was told that there was money saved for old Viking, and they used it on Jasper instead, or something like that. It's been quite a few years ago, but I don't know how
Well, that'd
much
been
it is.
are you talking about the original when Viking went in? Well,
When it was still
there.
Viking.
When it was
No, even,
concrete.
yeah, she's talking about the money that they had set aside for us when the new Viking came in years ago, but
But they didn't use it for us, they tarred Jasper or something else.
And we were all
These-
fully assessed for that when that went in, when Jasper went in. All residents around there got assessed for that.
How much percent did the city do?
We as residents paid 100% of that assessment.
100%?
Correct.
Well, I don't know where that money went then. That was reserved for Viking.
County has no money. And Old Viking, I know a lot of people probably did use it, but if it's not what they call the official detour,
it was an official detour though. I came to the city meeting and they detoured it that way.
then at that time, they should have asked for some money.
I don't know,
I
but,
wasn't on the council then, so I don't know, but.
and the other concern was, they were talking about the speed limit. I have never seen a cop on our road, pick anybody up. Ever. So we need to be patrolled more if they're talking about lowering the speed limit.
kind of funny, if you have officers come in and they'll do, speed limit enforcement on a local city street. And the majority of the people that get the
Everybody's slow.
tickets, it's the residents that live on the road.
Oh, see, there you go. That's
is.
all right. That's all right, because that stop sign at Cleary and Old Viking, everybody runs that. Well,
Yeah, there's a lot of people that do.
When we get our sheriff's report, they're very cognizant of when they tell us how many tickets they wrote, how few of them are actually now then residents. As they sit out on the county roads and people that are flying through tend to get a lot of the tickets. But we would, you know, and again, if we ask the sheriff's department to patrol that road more effectively, they'll do whatever we ask. But the residents need to understand that
we'll get
the tickets will be the people blowing through the stop
But
sign
we're
or
the ones that
speeding.
want it lowered, so we're not gonna be speeding. So it's passerbyers probably. Give them tickets.
All right, I'm putting that down.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else want to share with the whole group? Come on up.
My name is Pam Coolidge. I live at 7680. I don't really have any concerns. I think it's a great idea what's happening. My question is that there's so many properties for sale along Old Viking now. And I've seen in the past that they've developed into smaller developments and more traffic. In that development, they used the Old Viking for traffic, for heavy equipment. And not that we don't have a lot of us that use a lot of heavy equipment to move around on the road either, I'm not saying that, but when this happens, there's a lot of gravel and heavy-duty dump trucks and that go through to make this possible. Are there something set up to help us with this road in the future when if they expand these into housing developments and something added to the property tax for the future development and use of Old Viking that could be a wear and tear on this improvement we're making now and take it down sooner or quicker or faster than we accounted it for with a possible future development? I guess I'm just kind of curious as to what we're looking at for help in the future. It's just my question, it's just a general observation. So.
Shane, do you want to weigh in on that? You know, what the road is constructed for what weight and what typical usage? And I kind of spoke to one of the comments that was sent in that somebody couldn't be here tonight, that people that are running businesses or heavier load-bearing equipment on the road compared to, say, 40 trips a week in and out of a driveway that typical residents might have. You know, what is the road constructed to? What types of traffic should it be able to handle without detrimental effects?
Well, I guess one thing, you know, it's hard to go back and rate a road that's been in service for 30 years. When our new roads are constructed, they're constructed to a 9-ton standard. But one thing that the city council has the ability to do is post the road at a lower weight limit. And it probably would be a good idea to preserve the integrity. So instead of, say, a 9-ton standard, which is our normal, the city council could consider a 7-ton weight limit on that road. That would help keep construction traffic off of it. But again, if there's people on the road that, you know, just like the speeding thing, if there's people on the road that use that for access and have heavy equipment, that would affect maybe some people that live on the road.
Right,
So
yeah.
there's already a 6-ton sign on it, but is it enforced?
Is it posted at 6 tons?
Well,
That's temporary.
Okay.
Spring weight restrictions, yeah.
But what Shane is talking about is possibly the city council posting it permanently at a lower speed, and the city council can do that under the law, as long as we posted a sign at each end of the street. And then, after that, though, we still have to work with the sheriff's department to help us enforce it. And as the mayor mentioned, that is something that most of the sheriff's office is willing to do, to work with us, but it is something that it does have a tendency to get people that are living on the road as well, and it's something that everybody has to just be aware of. It is an option, and then,
Thank you.
but it's something that it may have some unforeseen consequences.
Yeah, and that's not what I was aimed for. I was just wondering about protecting our improvement for the length that we'd like to see it last.
And that would probably be the way we'd have to do it, though.
Oh, sure.
That's why, so we're just giving you, yes, we may have an option to do that, but it may have some unforeseen consequences.
Okay,
But it's something, it's a balancing act of the needs of the residents that live there versus the need to protect the road.
of course.
Some of the worst vehicles that damage roads are, a lot of people don't realize this, is school buses and garbage trucks.
Sure.
But you can't stop the school buses because the kids go to school, but one thing that you can do as a neighborhood is try to get together and everybody have the same garbage company, so you don't have 5 different companies coming down your road. That's just an idea, that's something that you as a neighborhood could do, and that would help.
Sure. Thank you.
And I heard a lot of enthusiasm for a change in speed limit. And again, not having any information on what the reduction in the road rating would be. But I would imagine those that have heavier equipment, whether it's farm equipment, whether it's other hauling there, those people probably want to weigh in on this. But again, it's the type of thing where you want to talk to your neighbors. What can we do that makes sense to all of us? It's a community, and the last thing we want to do as a council is impose things that a few people want on everybody. We want to have a cooperative and collaborative effort here. And one of the ways to protect the roads is to lower the tonnage on the road so that heavy equipment isn't using it. But then again, the people that are gonna, it's probably not being used as a bypass for heavy equipment. It's not that convenient a road, and so the people that probably are gonna get nailed by the sheriff would be the local residents, so. Make sure you're talking to your neighbors, and we're quite willing, an opportunity like this, we have meetings, and I'll say at Road and Bridge, we rarely have anybody come to a Road and Bridge meeting other than the committee and some council members. Maybe a lot of people are watching our meetings online, but an improvement hearing like this brings out a lot of people. Maybe you know these neighbors you're sitting with, maybe you don't, but it's an opportunity to start talking with your neighbors too. What would you like to see? And those areas where we don't have proper ditching, we gotta make sure we've got that. If we don't have culverts in there, what are we gonna do about that? But we do invite you to discuss things with your neighbors and contact us as council members. If it's easy to do, just contact the city and they can pass it on, or all of our numbers, our email addresses, our cell phone numbers are typically available. You can get a hold of us if you wanna talk individually with council members on things you'd like to see improved. So we do appreciate people coming out tonight, listening to the presentation, taking it in, giving us some feedback. You may take this back and think more about it when you go home and think, this is not the end of the input. This is the start. So, anybody else that would like to share here tonight?
So I got one more thing. Can we, when we have an idea or a thought, where do we go? Like, can we go online and send messages? Email? To where?
What's the easiest way for you to get it to us? Email?
Yeah, just email, yeah.
So-
Email to where?
So you can email it to me, so if you go onto our website, my email address is on there.
Have you been to our city website?
Yeah, it's a while. I can find it.
Yeah, so you can email it to the city clerk, Corey.
When this is over, just come over here and I'll, or I can give it to you publicly, I guess it's not a,
Yeah.
Okay, everybody get your pens out.
cause it's cleducer@nowthenmn.net. That's why it's,
Yeah, that'd be hard.
yeah, that's why I'm telling you.
Names like-
So that's the easiest way, because then Corey then communicates that information to the council. One of the things that does inhibit a city council is, because of open meeting laws, statutory open meeting laws, we can't get together other than in a public setting like this and discuss. We can only talk with one other council member. And so we can't send emails to each other, we can't do city business amongst ourselves unless we're out in the public like this. But you can send things to Corey, and that becomes part of the public record, which she then can send to all of us. So we get communicate.
Look for Corey and we can find
Yep,
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
on the website, if you go to, I think it's Department and then Administration, if you click on that, Corey's email comes up.
And like I say, if you do want to talk to any individual council members, or all individual council members, our numbers are available also. So you can call us and talk to us, or send us an email. I get a lot of text from residents, so we try to respond. Other comments, questions? Is it generally perceived to be a good idea, understanding the comments that were brought here?
If we can get the speed limit.
Like I said, with the comments that were presented here, so.
Just something to say about speed limit and traffic on that road.
Okay, Dan, but you gotta come up and say your name and. We've got people in the office that have to type out these minutes afterwards, so
Okay.
we have to make sure we're on microphone.
Dan Swanson, 7927 Old Viking. You know, what I've seen lately is a lot of increased traffic on that road in the last year or two. And I think a lot of people are using that as a kind of a cut off or cut across, you know, rather than to go down to New 22 or something. People are using that just as a road to go through, you know. And it's really should be a neighborhood road. And I think that's, if we could deal with the speed limit, they come back, I'm the first one on the road here, and they're going 60 miles an hour when they get to my driveway, from both ways. And that's pretty common. And people are using that as a little expressway through there. And some are using it to avoid the traffic tickets or the, you know, enforcement, because there isn't enforcement there. I noticed that, I'm generally not up that late at night, but when the bar closes over there, you know, on the weekends, there's a lot of traffic going, especially in the summer, a lot of traffic going up and down Viking, because you know, they're trying to avoid the police cars on the other roads. But I've noticed, just in general, the last year or two, a lot more traffic. And it isn't that we've got that many more residents in that area. You know, we've got a few more. But not so much in the last couple of years, you know, the last few years that we have the developments that have, you know, sprung up, so we got more cars coming in from the neighborhood. People are using it as a cut-across road from 5 to 47, and it's not being used as a neighborhood road. And I think if we got the speed limit reduced, that would make a big difference, you know. Either that or don't fix the road, let it get so bad that you can't only go about 30 miles an hour.
Oh, we've heard that. Turn it back to gravel.
Yeah, turn it back to a gravel road.
So let me, again, informal survey here, we've got maybe, you know, there's 66 residences represented, or 66 properties represented on our map here tonight. And we probably don't have half that, maybe about half that here tonight. Would you be opposed if we asked the sheriff to enforce the laws that exist a little more diligently on that? I can understand where it's easy for them to sit on 22 and fill their ticket book. But if people are avoiding 22 by going on Old Viking late at night or to avoid the county road for nefarious reasons, you as residents, are you opposed to asking the sheriff's department to enforce existing laws and hopefully new speed limits more aggressively on that road?
No, I think we really need to do something with the speed limit on there so it doesn't get used as the thoroughfare.
We can enforce the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit. we
Then
can
it doesn't really
enforce
do any good, though.
anybody who's,
They changed that from 55 to 50, and, that didn't do anything.
no,
You
no,
know,
but.
it really didn't.
But until we find out whether we can lower it, they can at least enforce what's there. And if people are avoiding it
But
because
people
they
use it
don't
as
wanna get
a,
stopped by the law, then
they're
let's not
using
make
it
it
as a
an easy.
thoroughfare now. I
easy
notice
route.
that all the time, you know, it isn't just late at night, it's, you know, at rush hour traffic and everything else, you know, they're just, you can shoot through there and it's less traffic there,
Much
less,
more scenic than the county road.
you got some
All right.
nice curves and hills there and farm equipment going up and down it all the time, so it's real scenic, you know. But that's-
Anything else? Ian?
That's all I got to say tonight, but
All
I
right.
think we need to get the speed limit lowered down so it isn't a thoroughfare. So it can be a neighborhood road, you know, serving the community, not, you know, county as a whole. Because people use it for cutting across and going all the way around here. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
Yep, Adam, 5320. So a lot to what everyone else is saying. It's a very busy road, so the one thing I guess I have a problem with is why as say residents or business owners, do we have to fit 50% of the bill when it's a highly public road with people from not only just our city using it on a daily basis? Not saying I have an answer, but it's just my observation. But
Anybody in the council got a reasonable answer right now?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rickard?
the only comment I can say there is 50% that's, you know, better than 100% what we've done in the past. And obviously, we've been working as a council to increase our road and improvement fund budget over the last few years, so we've definitely come a long way. I believe we got a longer way to go. But again, I've been out here for close to 25 years and I've been assessed 100% twice. So it's a starting point. Can we get better someday? Hopefully, but again, it's a starting point.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Rainville?
And to the fairness of it, it isn't fair. But there isn't, I've never known of a mechanism where we could charge, you know, the city would cover a percentage, the residents would cover a percentage, and everybody else would cover a percentage. Because how do you prove that the other people you're assessing truly use that road? They're gonna tell you they never go on the road. They only use the road they live on. You can't assess people from other communities. We don't have the authority to do that. So it's not fair, but it's the mechanism that's in place for us to use. And Councilmember Rickard is correct. We've worked hard on trying to bring some money into our road improvement fund. We hadn't funded it in quite a while. We're now funding it. Going forward, we'll hopefully continue that funding. And maybe down the road, we will have the ability to lower the assessment portion of it. But at this time, we're only able to do the 50% in order to get the projects done in a timely manner.
I don't know if there's a reasonable way, back to Mr. Swanson's comments about identifying it as a local traffic only. I mean, when I moved out here, it was the only way to get from 5 to 47. And there's still those people that like it best. So there's gonna be through traffic on that. There's people that are going up to Basalt, going up to some of the other neighborhoods there, that it's easier to come from 5 or from 66 to go down to a portion of Old Viking. But if there's some reasonable way of trying to entice, to make that a local traffic only road, we'll have to see what we can do. But there again, it's hard. You would think with a nice new county road, with the nice new surface and the wide shoulders, that would be more enticing to people. But if people that are, as we develop some of the properties north of there, they're still gonna be Old Viking is gonna be preferred route to get to those, so. But it is, you know, again, because we've had the opportunity to talk, we can look at speed limits, we can take a look at how we divert traffic to the roads that are built for it and try and keep this more residential. Speaks to the, you know, if we do make the upgrade, speaks to saving it as long as we can, preserving it as best we can, so. Again, we appreciate your input. We welcome it to continue. Before we would decide anything and any monies would be spent, there will be additional hearing, and you will be notified so that there are limited surprises. If something comes up, you're talking to your neighbors and you say, that's a good question, it didn't come up tonight, feel free to pass that along. We do, Corey does make sure he records them all and gets them to the council. And if anybody wants to hear this discussion and they don't know about it, direct them to YouTube. Just look up the City of Now Then on YouTube and you'll see all of the meetings. All of our meetings are recorded and put on YouTube. Any other comments from the audience? I do thank you for taking the time to come out here tonight. I thank you for the politeness and for the input. So, thank you very much. We will continue this hearing to April 5th, Thursday night, 7 o'clock, so those people on Westport Brook can weigh in. And we will take comments at the beginning of that meeting for anybody who still wants to comment, and then we'll close the hearing at that point. So, meeting continued.
That was April 5th at 7 o'clock.
April 5th, 7